One of the things you hear about a lot today is this truth that there's just not enough housing. You'll hear a lot of people talk about the idea of converting office to apartments. But Mark is one of the only guys that I know that has actually done this.
Was not easy. It's very expensive. Total brain damage.
I'm wondering if you'd be willing to share maybe a deal story where the risk went the other way.
The one that hurts me the most is in Sacramento, California. Yeah, I call it sack of tomatoes because that's what it turned out to be. The state of California stopped paying their rent.
The risk is real.
I was having a good day until now, but
look, I'm sorry. Money's more expensive. Energy's more expensive. Labor's more expensive. Transportation's more expensive. That's making everything more expensive.
My best deals all have one common denominator: the CCIM network.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Timmy?
Yes. Let
me introduce you to Mark Cypert. Mark is, and this is a little bit embarrassing, but this isn't the embarrassing part, but he's a 102 instructor like I am.
Yeah.
And the first time I ever went out to audit the course, like he was teaching the course and I've gotten to teach him a number of times, and he's kind of the man when it comes to 102. And I'm always talking to my wife about, teaching and trying to learn and do better and things. And I've brought him up so many times that Autumn calls him my man crush.
He's your man crush.
Yeah,
he's the one.
This is the guy. That's a little embarrassing. Nothing weird about that, but Mark is, he's an investor. And so I'll let him tell you about kind of how he got into commercial real estate and stuff, but he is an investor. And so a lot of the things that we've talked about over episodes of the last year, like this is what he does.
Nice.
He's not a broker. He's not a property manager. He's not he's an actual investor. And so I'm really excited to have him share with us and you specifically how he looks at an investment, how he evaluates a market, how he does these things.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Sweet.
So
sounds good.
Timmy, meet Mark Cypert. Mark, this is my brother, Timmy.
Timmy, it's a pleasure. Thank you guys for, having me on your podcast. And Timmy, a little bit about that man crush that Bo told you about. The honest truth is I've actually met Autumn, or she, we had a chance to meet, and I'm sure she's saying, what in the heck did you have a crush on that guy for? What was that one?
I've forgotten that. When did you meet?
We remember we were teaching in Nashville, and I had to go to your daughter's softball game, and I think, Autumn was there for sure.
So Maddie was playing Bowling
Maddie was
Green.
playing.
Yeah. And we were in Nashville teaching, and we drove up to Bowling Green and watched Maddie play.
Oh,
and that's
nice.
Right. I'd forgotten. Yeah. You met
and remember you told her that I was a college scout for my alma mater, Texas Tech.
Yeah, that's right.
And your creature comment was, I don't want to go to Texas.
Yeah. She's like, Texas is so far away. Yeah.
Yeah. Who wants to go there? I don't care if he's a scout.
That's great.
Anyway.
Yeah. It's probably an intellectual crush, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Not saying, you're very handsome.
Yeah. Now let's be clear about this, Bo. Be real clear about what you're meaning.
Well, welcome to Commercially Speaking. Those of you watching, welcome to Commercially Speaking. My name is Timmy Barron, ADHD.
I'm Bo Barron, CCIM.
And Bo teaching me about everything he knows about commercial real estate, specifically commercial real estate investing.
So a lot of times when we kick off an episode, Timmy will have something for me. Sometimes he does a card trick. Sometimes he tests out jokes. Sometimes he brings his keyboard in and does a little name that tune sort of thing. He'll play me a few notes and I have to guess the song or whatever. So I thought we'd switch it up today, and I have my guitar.
Woohoo!
And I'm going to play.
Oh, nice. I'm just assuming we're going to be getting a lot of Dave Matthews, Creed, Buckeye Cherry. Is that a Eagle-Eye Cherry?
Buck Cherry.
Buck Cherry, is that
an
one?
Eagle-Eye Cherry.
Yeah. Bush.
All right. Let's see. Can you
that sounds
hear
good.
that okay? Okay. All right. So just a few notes, and we'll see what happens here. So
keep going, Bo. Keep going.
Yeah, hit us with a few more bars.
No clue?
I had heard this song, but I got nothing.
Yeah, no, is there more to it? Or is that mainly?
Well, it's a 90s rock song, so it's the same chord progression throughout the whole song. There's a different...
I mean, I hear the timbre.
Oh, wait. Ooh, 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 I feel it coming back again like a rolling. Yeah, you got nothing. I feel it coming back again.
That's all I got. That's all I got.
Lightning Crashes.
Lightning Crashes.
By Live.
Oh, okay. Oh, nah.
Like that song's not familiar. Mark, have you ever heard that song?
I have heard that song. It's a good song.
Yeah. I wouldn't have been able to have recognized. Like, I just know the, you know, it's just one of those where you've heard it on the radio.
Yeah.
You know, when I was 7.
Okay, so here's same key for this song, same chord progression in a different, but this is a little different. And I think I would expect that you'll probably get this one.
Okay. I know it.
Yeah,
I know it. Yeah, let's see. Mark, do you know that?
Here, one more time.
Yeah, I know it. I know it. With a little love and some tenderness.
Yep.
We'll walk slow together. Take her by the hand.
Yeah, whatever.
So please, I'm a need. Hold my hand, would you hold my hand by Hootie and the Blowfish.
Yes,
yeah.
Very good, very good, very good, very good. And
oh wow, it's been so long.
Let's see if I. That was one of the first songs I ever learned how to play on guitar.
I remember that. I remember Hootie and the Blowfish. You loved them.
Let's see if I can remember how to play this one. But wait.
I know it. All feet and I feel so the places.
All right, so
now I'm feeding by Saturday and that now in places. It's Dave Matthews Band.
Yes. We know it's Dave Matthews at this point.
Because I'm tripping Billy.
That's it. Tripping Billy's. All right. Well, thanks for playing. That was...
Yeah.
I failed miserably.
You were in a high schooler in the 90s, so...
No.
That was what was playing on the radio when I was learning how to play guitar.
That's good. That was the heyday of guitar.
Yeah. And everything was 3 chords and pretty easy.
And you've got some skills I was not aware of, Bo. You know, you're a man of many talents.
Well, the story behind the guitar is I met my wife when I was 10 in high school church choir. And, I was kind of a dork and she was beautiful and she could really sing. And I was thinking to myself, how on earth can I get this girl to notice me? Yeah. And I was like a 5'2", 120-pound freshman in high school. Nothing about me was big, handsome, athletic, nothing. And,
he's right. Yeah.
So I thought, man, if I can learn how to play guitar, I can probably get her attention. Mm-hmm. And it worked.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. He fooled me.
Yeah, I've got everybody fooled.
No, that's amazing. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So
we're doing something a little different, you said, right?
A little different.
Yeah.
You want to do a pop quiz at the beginning?
Yeah.
Mark, what we do normally at the end of episodes is we give Timmy a pop quiz based on what we talked about and what we taught him on the episode. However, as you're a 102 instructor and I'm a 102 instructor, and Timmy has been getting 102 stuff for the last year on episodes, I thought right off the bat, let's do a pop quiz and see what you got. And so, Mark, anything 102 related is free game.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And matter of fact, you could just give him a complete curveball and give him just something commercial real estate related. He may have heard it by this point.
All right.
And as our special guest, you get to ask the first question.
Okay. All right. Let's see, Timmy, why do you see automobile dealers all in the same general location? Same is true for fast food restaurants, furniture stores, medical uses.
Yes.
Why are they all together, even though they're competing?
Yes. Now, if there's a term for this, it's eluding me. If that's the right word, it eludes me.
Yeah, that's the right word.
Yeah. I don't know if there's a term, but I remember we talked about it in reference to gas stations. And
yeah, but you notice this, right? They're all together in one general location, even though they're competing.
Right. Well, I think it's because the customer's already going there for that thing, right? So if I'm going to open up a gas station, there's a gas station down the road. People are going there already. So why not open it and compete in that area where they're already going to for that thing?
That's not wrong. I don't know that that answers his question.
Yeah.
What advantage might they have by locating together?
I can only think of what I just said. That's the market is going, like it keeps it in one location.
Let me ask it a different way, Timmy.
Okay.
Let's say that you want to shop for a new sofa.
Okay.
Right. Your dog messed up your sofa. You need to buy a new one.
Yeah.
And you go where there's a furniture store, and across the street there's another furniture store, and right down the street there's another store that sells sofas. Why does that area attract you? When you're wanting to buy a sofa, why would you go to that area specific?
Well, because that's where the sofas are. Because if I'm a sofa business and I know there's an Ashley's and another furniture company, right? It's like I'm gonna go there because people that are looking for sofas that know that's there, know they want to go there. Well, here I am as well. Why don't you just pop on over here and take a look at my stuff as well, right?
Bo, I think he's got it.
He's got it, and I think the term you're missing is agglomeration.
Yeah, agglomeration.
Or they're clustering.
Yes, a cluster.
Right?
Yeah.
Because now, if you think in terms of a magnet,
mm-hmm.
why would there be an advantage for them combining their magnetic forces?
Well, you got the more customers are attracted to that area.
Yeah, more magnets would pull more customers,
right.
And all of them should do better.
Right.
Yeah.
Rising tide.
Bo, I think he'd pass that one with flying colors.
Okay. Well
Yeah.
done. Woo-hoo. Okay.
Yeah. Good question.
Question number 2. Explain to me the difference between a basic and a non-basic job.
Oh, sure. A basic job, brings new dollar bills into the community.
Mm-hmm. Why?
Because what they provide is exported, and it brings new dollar bills in.
Yes.
A non-basic job circulates dollars within the community. So it's things because what they provide is for within that community. You're not exporting goods or services.
Yeah. I'd say that's a great answer.
That's like one of our first episodes. And
I know that's kind of a gimme, but I wanted you to show off in front of Mark.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm impressed, Timmy.
Okay, good.
All right. Mark, question 3.
All right, Timmy, you guys have talked about market cycles.
Yes.
Have you?
Yes.
And you've talked about strategies to employ during different phases of the market cycle?
Yes, we have. Yes.
All right. Well, you'll know this one then. So,
okay.
Timmy, if you could time things perfectly, when do you want to be a seller of real estate? What phase of the cycle?
Oh, good.
When do you want to sell? Do you remember the phases?
Yeah. Phase 1, 2, 3, and 4.
What?
So, but and then you've got, of course, equilibrium. You've got oversupply.
Yeah.
I think it's third.
Third. Yeah.
Oversupply. Then 4. Recession.
Mm-hmm.
2, I guess, would be undersupply.
No.
Recession. Yeah. So we got.
What comes after recession?
Recession comes number 1, which would be.
If the recession is winter time, what comes after the winter? What season's
Spring.
after winter? Yeah.
Spring.
So recession would be recovery would be the spring.
Yes.
And then what comes after the spring?
Recovery would be the uptick to fall, summer.
Yeah. What's that phase called?
I don't remember. But you're
that would
you're
be the
in
expansion phase, right? The
expansion.
phase.
Yes. Okay.
So
okay, great.
So you've got
If I'm
the
a seller.
phases down. So when do you want to be a seller then? At what point in these phases?
If you could time it, I'd say expansion. Wait. Yeah, expansion. You want to be a seller during expansion because the supply is low and you'd assume that the demand would be higher.
Like, what's that one point?
Equilibrium.
Which is at the end of what stage?
Expansion, number 2. So it's like right there. So equilibrium, I guess ideally, but is that technically in 2?
It's
phase 2?
It's the final point
Of
expansion or the beginning of fall or oversupply.
Right. So that's why I was like, that's kind of like in the middle of 2 phases. Right? But technically it'd be the end of expansion. But equilibrium would be the point.
Good job. I give you a name on that one.
Okay. All right. I'll take it. A little bit of help. Thank you. But
Way to talk it through.
Yeah.
Question 4. Explain to me what the economic base multiplier is.
Sure. You got jobs coming in, right? And then you identify how many of those are basic jobs. Then you're able to take the economic base multiplier to understand how many jobs total you can figure out are coming in. And then from there, you can figure out households and need for space and
Yeah,
more
so
details.
follow-up question
Sure.
is, if the economic base multiplier is 5, what does that actually tell you?
You would multiply. Would you just multiply the basic jobs by 5? And that would tell you the total jobs.
Yep. So if the economic base multiplier is 5, for every 1 basic job,
You have 4 non-basic jobs.
exactly right.
All right, sweet.
Nice. Good. Not bad for an actor and a comedian.
He's
All
good.
right. Mark, question 5. Finish
All right.
us off here.
All right, final question, Timmy. So, we've talked about, 102 is all about analyzing and forecasting demand and matching it up with supply and finding those gaps, those opportunities. Well, you talked about households a moment ago, so let's focus on residential because everybody can understand that, right? We all live somewhere. So if we are analyzing residential demand and we look at the residential demand formula, one of the things we remove from the calculation is what's called non-household people that are in non-households, right?
Yeah.
Now, we also call those, in a hint, we call those group quarters. There's 4 big ones, 4 big segments of population that fall into this non-household category. Can you think of what those may be?
Pets.
Pets?
Yeah, I know that's not correct. So there are 4 groups that would be considered non-household.
4 primary groups. There's more than that, but 4 primary ones that would live in what we call group quarters or non-traditional households.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I don't know if we've ever.
I don't know if we have either,
I
but
think one would be like a nursing home.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, that's probably the largest component of all is skilled nursing.
And dorms, like college dorms.
yep, totally.
Very good. And that specifically, that's students living on campus. So students living off campus would be considered a household. But in dorms,
Yeah. Halfway houses.
Well, before that,
Before what?
where are they before they go to a halfway house?
Rehabilitation centers. Right?
Or prison?
Oh, yeah. Prison. Mm-hmm. Prison. Not every addict goes to prison. Especially not in California anymore. It's a show over there. I just saw a video on this yesterday. There's a lot of talk about Gavin Newsom nowadays. Is there one more?
Mm-hmm.
So prisons.
So think about me and Jay.
Oh, military base.
Yep.
Bases. Yeah. All right. That's kind of common sense in a way, but
he aced this, man. He did it. He did great. I'm impressed, Timmy.
Well done, my man.
great. My dopamine is spiking.
Okay. Good. All right. Well, what would you like to know about Mark?
I'd love like a 5-minute origin story. Let's start at the very beginning. So you've just been born.
I'm from a small town just outside of Lubbock, Texas. Timmy, can you find Lubbock, Texas on a map? Have you heard of it?
I've heard of it because I think that's where Waco was, right?
Waco is between Dallas and Austin.
Oh.
Lubbock is known farther out in West Texas. Anyway,
how do I know the name Lubbock?
The University, Texas Tech.
Oh.
Anyway, Timmy, that's where I'm from, and I always tell people, about the town I grew up in, the little farming town I grew up in, that I graduated 10th in my high school class.
That is pretty impressive. Yeah.
Everybody wants to know a follow-on question, which would be what?
How many people in that class?
Yeah, that's what they want to know. The denominator is not important, Timmy, for this math. It's the numerator that's important.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I'll leave it a mystery, but just know I was in the top 10. That's all you need to know.
Okay.
So anyway, I went to school at Tech. I was an engineering student, and I focused on civil engineering, construction-related engineering. I went to work right out of school in Dallas, where I've been my entire career, working on construction projects, working for a construction developer. And I love that job. I love the whole aspect of it. But after about 8 years of doing construction-related work, to me, a more interesting question is not how to build a building, but why, when, and where do you build a building? And so I shifted my career to that focus and went to work for institutional investor, Aetna Realty, where I was an asset manager and also doing acquisitions and dispositions. So I shifted my career towards that aspect of it. But having a background in development construction is always, I think, is a good background.
It came to me why I know Lubbock, Texas.
Why?
Buddy Holly.
That's right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Buddy's from there.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you were in the play about Buddy Holly. Were you Buddy Holly?
No, I was Jerry
bass player.
Allison. I was the drummer.
The drummer?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was in Buddy Holly musical. That's how I know it.
Okay.
Yeah, I knew it. Okay.
Yeah, we have a lot of musicians from Lubbock, but Buddy is he's the king.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, he is. He was a big influence on the Beatles.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, Paul McCartney loved him. Anyway, that's true.
So that's what I've been doing in my career, is shifting towards the investment side of it, and I've done that for the last 30 years. So, in teaching 102, teaching CCIM, that's what I do.
So how, and I don't know the answer to this, and I'd love to hear the story, but once you stopped doing this work for Aetna and you started doing it for yourself, tell me the story about that first deal. It's the first time you're doing it. How'd you find the deal? How'd you evaluate it?
Sure.
How'd you go from?
First of all,
great question.
Yeah, to invest your own capital, you have to have capital, right? So that all happened after Aetna. I worked for a New York Stock Exchange REIT, a publicly traded REIT, and I ran their Texas region, and I had a lot of stock options, and I invested through that. Well, the REIT privatized back in 2005. So that was a big capital event for me, and that was a game changer.
Do you know if you ever bring up a term or something that I don't think Timmy understands or knows or has heard before, I'll try to stop you. So I apologize for interrupting, but
no worries.
Privatized, does that mean anything to you?
Well, I mean, kind of.
Well, Mark, why don't you share with him what you mean when...
Yeah. So, Timmy, you know what a REIT is, right? A publicly traded REIT, New York Stock Exchange REIT.
Yes, I do.
You buy shares of stock that invest in real estate, right?
Yeah.
Well, the REIT that I work for privatized, which means it sold its asset to a private equity investment fund. So it was no longer publicly traded.
Yeah. So they bought him out. They bought out his shares, essentially.
Yes.
So he had ownership in the REIT, and now he has cash.
Yeah.
So with that cash, I shifted my career to directly investing in real estate and private equity joint venture partnerships. And so that's what I've been doing now for 20 years.
Wow.
So in a lot of ways, we've talked about how I'll syndicate properties.
Yes.
He's doing that oftentimes with JV partners. So where I might get a group of a bunch of people I know, and they'll all invest a little. He might just find one joint venture partner that is institutional grade, or like institutional size. And the two of them will go do. So Mark will put in some of his money. The JV partner will put in the remainder of the equity needed, and they'll go do a deal.
Yeah.
So it feels a lot the same at a larger level.
Right. That's what my assumption would be. It'd be bigger deals, bigger things you're doing. And the way you said it there made me think, there wasn't much of a loan you're getting from the bank because of the JV, but you're still getting.
You could. Yeah, totally. Yeah. But it would just depend on what they wanted their capital stack to look like.
Yeah. Okay.
Whether they use debt or not. And I would assume they probably do, but I don't know the answer to that or how they did it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We leverage our assets.
Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, great. So like the first time you did this, what did it look like?
Oh, well, let's see. You have to understand the structures in these joint ventures. You're either a general partner or a limited partner. So our equity capital, these are the larger institutional sized investors. They're the limited partners, right? So my investment is on the general partnership side. So I'll have multiple general partners on my end without getting too complicated on the structure.
Right. We're with you.
Does that make sense?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I had a general partnership that we had formed, and trying to remember the very first deal we did. I actually sourced this deal from a fellow CCIM, actually a former CCIM instructor, who brought me a deal. He was involved in a tenant in common fund. It invested in a building in Indianapolis, Indiana, that was leased to Eli Lilly. Eli Lilly's lease expired. The building went empty, and so the TIC fund imploded. It blew up.
Take us through how you evaluated the deal, how you evaluated Indianapolis. What led you to get comfortable enough to take the kind of risk to buy an empty building?
First of all, real estate's a geography-based business, right? So you have to understand what's going on big picture, in the country, what's going on in the region, what's going on in the state, the metropolitan area, and specifically in this case, Indianapolis. Indianapolis tends to be a little bit more stable than other faster growing markets. It doesn't have the upside, but also doesn't have the downside typically. So it was a good diverse economy. We liked the market, but specifically we're looking at the asset itself. So you're looking at the submarket the asset is in, how the property competes in that market. You're looking at the site and locational factors of that building. What I liked about the submarket is it was a high quality asset. Like say it was formerly leased to Eli Lilly. So it was a kind of a mixed use asset. It was a big building. It had a combination of office use and a very clean, secure warehouse where they, previously stored pharmaceuticals. So it had that combined use, which we liked. It had a really big site, lots of parking, so some flexibility. We had a good favorable basis, when we bought it. When we analyzed the building, we knew that there was another prospect in looking at Indianapolis, and that prospect was Lowe's Home Improvement Corporation. They had narrowed their search to 2 cities for their Midwest call center. We could talk about what a call center is, but
Timmy's worked in a call center.
Yeah.
Oh, well, then you know what that is. So Lowe's was looking for a Midwest call center, and they had narrowed their search when we bought this building to 2 cities. One was Indianapolis, the other one was Pittsburgh. We thought Indianapolis stood a good chance of landing this call center. And so we went ahead and bought the building, right?
Yeah.
Shortly after we bought the building, Indianapolis was selected. Well, when we did our due diligence, there were really only 2 buildings that could support this use. One was our building, and the other one was located in the suburban northern market called Fishers, Indiana. It was an empty building, a little bit older. I'm trying to remember now, I think it was formerly a Schwab building.
Okay.
As soon as we knew Indy was selected, our chances were 50-50, right? Because they needed to be in a time certain within that year. And there was no other new buildings that could be delivered that suited their needs and had all this parking
pipeline,
within the time frame. So anyway, one of the decisions we made, which turned out to be a great decision, we got a hold of the mayor's office, and we got him on the case. This was going to create, once again, I'm going on memories, but I think there were about 800, maybe 850 new jobs here. Guess what? The mayor's office, the city leadership, they wanted these jobs in their city, so they went to bat for us. They became a big advocate. Wow. I'll never forget when the Lowe's executives all flew into town. They had their head of real estate, their head of security, their head of technology, their head of, all these different departments, and they toured our building. We had the mayor there. We rolled out the red carpet. We showed them the ultimate welcome, and ultimately that made the difference. And we were able to secure them and did the deal, and turned out to be a great investment.
So smart to contact the mayor and get him on your side. What sparked that idea?
Well, these are clearly basic jobs. These are jobs that are going to be created in this particular city of Indianapolis, that bring new money into Indianapolis, that get circulated around the economy, that grows total jobs in Indianapolis.
Yeah.
The city leadership in Indianapolis was fully aware of this and took the initiative, and I'm so thankful they did. One of the other things they provided was a lot of these jobs were university level jobs. As I recall, there was a bus line, a specific from university campus to our site that they created, for these jobs. So it was all about this growing of the economy. They saw the benefit of all this, new job creation. And these were pretty well-paid jobs too. So it was beneficial, not only for us, but for the entire city and the region.
So the mayor and his team, they could have figured out the economic base multiplier, figured out how many new jobs.
Right.
They could calculate that out to the actual dollar amount of economic impact that bringing all those jobs in. And now they've got a huge incentive to land Lowe's and to help Mark get those jobs, because everybody benefits if they do.
Yeah.
As opposed to if they went to Fishers, which is just a much smaller community, they wouldn't have as much to offer them, probably incentive-wise or...
it benefited the whole area, including, the suburban markets. But you have the big anchor city, so to speak, who has a lot of competitive advantages over some of the smaller cities. Right. And ultimately, I wouldn't say it was ultimately between 2 cities. It really was the facility that made the deal. We happen to have a really good facility that fit their needs. But having the city on our side certainly helped.
Since their basis was so low, they could still invest more money in the deal to make the Lowe's thing happen.
Yeah.
And still be able to get a great return.
Another thing to point out is this was not a multi-tenant building. We had one exit strategy, and that was to fill it up with a single tenant.
Wow.
I actually don't even remember the size of the building. It was over 100,000 square feet.
Yeah. It's
kind of binary, right? It's either going to be empty or full.
Right.
We didn't have a lot of options. It was a risky deal going into it.
Yeah. But when you did the underwriting, of course, the best case scenario is they choose Indianapolis. But I assume when you did the underwriting, if they didn't, you had some room and some time to find something else. Yeah.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
We did. And there's always downside scenarios, which was in our underwriting. But the best possible outcome was Lowe's, which we identified when we tied up the building, and that's ultimately what came true for us. Yeah. Fortunately, they don't all work out like that.
Right. Right.
But that was really my first one where, as a private equity investor, we really did some good.
Yeah. I mean, that's a killer deal.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep. Wish they were all like that.
Right. Right. It really just seems like best case scenario.
Here's the end of that story, Timmy.
Yeah.
So our plan was to do this long-term lease with a great credit company, hold it for a year, get your capital gains tax treatment, and then sell it. Well, in the middle of all of this, Lowe's decided they wanted to go ahead and buy the building from us. Right? And we don't own it for a few months.
Wow.
Ultimately, if we could choose to hold a empty building and not do that, or we can choose to sell it to Lowe's and pay the ordinary income tax. And you know what? If you're paying taxes, it's not the worst thing in the world if you're making money.
Have we ever talked about the difference between ordinary income taxes and capital gains taxes?
I mean, a little bit with...
Well, here's just a quick recap.
Okay.
If, like in this case, they bought the building, they put Lowe's in there. A couple months later, Lowe's says, we actually want to buy the building, and they sold it to them. Okay. They made a great return, but that money they made was considered ordinary income, which is taxed at a higher rate than capital gains. If they would have held it for a year or longer, they could have gotten that lower capital gains rate. So I'm sure, Mark, you probably had a conversation with Lowe's that said, how about you just pay rent for another 10 months and then we sell it? And they probably said, nope, we're not interested. You want us to buy it? We'll do it now.
Obviously, they had their game plan and they executed that plan. And yes, of course, we had that conversation. But ultimately, we paid the ordinary income and went on down the road.
I would have called their bluff.
No, you wouldn't have.
I mean, like maybe I guess not.
Keep in mind, I wasn't the only choice. We had competition, right? Now they want to lose this deal.
That's a good point.
Well,
even still, I would have called their bluff. That's why I don't do this.
One of the things you hear about a lot today is this idea or this truth that there's just not enough housing. So there's an issue in affordable housing. And we've got all this office out there that because of COVID is either obsolete and unused. There's just a lot of office space. The office market is depressed, and we need more housing units in most places. And so you'll hear a lot of people talk about the idea of converting office to apartments. Most of the time, that's economically not feasible.
Yeah.
It's just there's too many issues. Office buildings aren't built to be multifamily, so the conversion can be very...
like all the added plumbing. And
all that stuff can be a big issue. But Mark is one of the only guys that I know that has actually done this before. And so... do you mind sharing with us the Dallas deal where you took the office?
Yeah. Yep. So, what Bo's referring to is a high-rise office building in Dallas, Texas.
30 stories?
Yeah, it's 30-story skyscraper in downtown Dallas, Texas. If you know Dallas, it is a very big, very diverse, very fast-growing market. In fact, it's the market we use in our 102 case studies. Well, there is a neighboring submarket just north of downtown called Uptown Dallas. For 20, 30 years has been the hotter market, right? Downtown has languished a bit and has lost companies moving to Uptown. But they're still both very big, important, dominant markets. Well, this particular building, One Dallas Center, happened to be in the downtown core and had lost tenants over the years. When the building was on the market, this was about 2007, 2008 timeframe. If you remember, we had the Great Recession, right? The really big economic downturn before this last one with COVID. So the building suffered from that. It was owned by a group that did not maintain the building well, did not have a good relationship with tenants or tenant brokers in the market, and had lost tenants over the years, and it was actually in foreclosure. So the bank had taken this building back. The building was a nice building. It was one of the few buildings in Dallas that was designed by I.M. Pei. I.M. Pei is a world-renowned architect. It was also on the light rail line. We call it the DART line, the Dallas Area Rapid Transit line. Yeah. Plus, it had for downtown, a fairly large garage, structured parking garage, with a sky bridge connecting the garage over the train line into the building.
Huh. Yeah.
So wait, I got to ask you a question real quick. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Linkage.
Go ahead.
That's the answer. I was like, what is that DART line? And he said it. Linkage. Like a linkage. Yeah. Yes. Good. Perfect.
Yeah, good. Yeah. So, and it also linked to the garage, right?
Right.
So back to the building. When it was foreclosed on, it was at 30% leased. The remaining tenant in this building was the Greyhound Corporation. And they had a short-term lease expiration. I don't remember the exact year. I'm sorry. Let's call it 2007. Let's call it 2008. So Greyhound had a lease that expired the end of that year. And when we put it under contract with the bank that had foreclosed, that was about July, August. We had about 5 or 6 months before the building went totally empty because Greyhound they were negotiating a lease in an alternate building, and it was going to go totally dark. So you had potential of a 30-story, totally empty building. Nice building, but totally empty in downtown.
Were you hoping that Greyhound would end up being out, or were you hoping that they would stay? And when you were
when we first tied it up, we were under the assumption that they would be gone.
Yeah, okay.
Because they were actively negotiating a new lease with a different building.
Cool.
So we put the building under contract. We had a great brokerage team with Jones Lang LaSalle based in Dallas, JLL, and they brought me an opportunity for very large architectural firm that was actually in Uptown. If you remember, Uptown was the hotter, more desirable market.
Right.
This architectural firm was HKS Architects, based right there in Dallas. HKS designs the sports stadiums. That's their main forte. So, they do a lot of the big, really high profile, beautiful sports stadiums globally. And they were looking for a new headquarters location. So we were able to get them interested in One Dallas Center and started negotiating that lease. Before we'd even closed on the building, we were under contract.
Oh, wow.
Ultimately, we negotiated a lease with HKS. They took multiple floors on the lower level of the building and signed a 20-year plus lease. Before we even closed, we had HKS in hand, but we still had, let's call it 2/3 of the building to deal with, right? What are we going to do with the rest of it? Well, fortunately, we were able to keep Greyhound and sign a long-term lease with them for the balance of the lower half of the building. So now I've got HKS and Greyhound long-term leased for the lower 15 floors. Now, the building had 2 elevator banks. One group of elevators serves floors 1 through 15. The other group serves floors 16 through 30. Okay. They were separate elevator lobbies. Okay. So we were thinking, okay, we got the lower half of the building taken care of. What do we do if the upper half is still empty? So first of all, we broke the building into 2 pieces, doing what's called a condominium split. So legally, one building became 2 buildings, right? So the lower half became 1 building, the upper half became a separate building for tax purposes, legally, title, all of that. We also split the garage, and we brought in a partner to take the upper half of the building and convert it to multifamily residential. That's a very specialized process, as you can imagine. Converting an office building to residential is very, very complex. Buildings that were built for offices are not built for multifamily. So you have to do a lot of changes.
Yeah.
None the least of which, you have to put plumbing in every unit.
Right.
You have to put air conditioning units and air conditioning controls in every unit.
Right.
What do you do with the common areas in the office building that, you no longer need men's and women's restrooms on a, multi-tenant office floor? This developer that we teamed up with had a lot of experience doing these conversions, built over 300 units, but on average 13, 14 units per floor. They were, mostly 1 bedroom, some 2 bedroom. We took the common area core of the building, converted that to storage, right, for the individual units. And it turned out to be a very successful project. It took a couple of years to do the conversion. We were very pioneering. At the time, downtown Dallas had a few office buildings that had been converted, but not many. And the other thing, another linkage, is we were not only on the Dart light rail line, but we were also on the McKinney Street trolley. And the trolley connected downtown to uptown, where all the restaurants, bars, all the cool stuff is, right?
Oh, yeah.
So if you're a resident in this converted office building, you can move around the city. You can park securely in your parking garage. You can securely access your building without some of the issues you deal with downtown, downtown urban locations. You can get on the Dart line, go straight to DFW Airport, Love Field. You can move around the city. You can also catch the trolley to go to where all the cool stuff is, the bars, the restaurants, the music scene. So it turned out to be a very successful but complex project.
Now I've got a few questions. Do you have some questions about this one?
Well, my biggest question is like that proves it can be done, and it's 2 years, like it's been done before. Of course, that developer was able to turn it into it, right? It's a big process to do, but we've talked about this before where it's like, it's almost sounds like it's too much to turn office buildings into residential.
Well, think about this.
Yeah.
How did they buy it? How did they buy the building? They bought it from the bank.
Yeah.
So my assumption is they got a great deal, another low basis they got in this building.
Right.
In Kentucky, we might say they stole it.
Yeah.
That allows them the margin to be able to spend all the money that it takes to convert it. And he was able to keep Greyhound, and you had the office part leased up.
We were 50% leased long-term with reasonably good credit. So I've got half the building already sorted out. It's what do you do with the other half? And it really wasn't the initial strategy going in.
Yeah.
But it turned out to be the feasible way to go.
Right.
But once again, I want to emphasize, it's very complicated to do these conversions. It was not easy. It's very expensive. It's total brain damage.
Right. And what you're saying is like the margin was there. It just happened to work out in this case.
If I own a high-rise office building in Dallas, right, and I own it, and my basis, let's say I bought it as a stable investment, and it was full, great tenants, and then COVID hit, and it changed the world in office, and now this very stable office building now is really struggling, and I want to convert it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my basis in the building's way up here. It would be very difficult for me to make the numbers work to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But and they had that as an option, partly because of how they bought it so low.
Yeah. Yeah.
A saying I always use it's a silly little saying, but it's easier to buy it cheap than it is to sell it expensive. And that buy it cheap is the key, right? So when you buy a building, and Bo's talking about his basis, right? Well, once you lock that in, you know that number. What is the unknown? Well, the unknown is everything that happens afterwards, right? But you can have a lot more runway to make a deal work if you buy it at the right price on the very front end.
So, Mark, I do have a question. When you guys converted the top 15 stories to multifamily, you mentioned most of the units were single bedroom and some were two bedroom. Was that a function of the analysis of the demand? So you did mostly ones and twos, or did the layout require that you needed that?
It was a combination of both, but really it was the market. So we surveyed the competition, which you always have to do, right? Who are you competing with? What does that demographic look like? The demographic had to be based on income levels, type of jobs, marital status. Predominantly, these were young, mobile professionals that didn't have families. So the one bedrooms fit.
When your original idea going in, what were some of the risks that you identified during your underwriting that you really kind of had to plan for?
Once again, it's all about your basis, right? And then what are you assuming your cost is to convert? First of all, we inherited a building that had been neglected, had been not maintained well. So there was a lot of things to fix up, clean up. So that was part of it. There were ground leases under this building. Now, we could talk about what a ground lease is, but there were 4 of them, 2 under the garage, 2 under the building. A couple of them had less than 30 years left on the term of that ground lease. And so at the time, the lender market, and I assume this is probably still the case. I don't know if you guys have talked about loan terms on amortization period versus the actual loan term, but if your loan
balloon payments
is less than, or say 30 years, and your ground lease is less than 30 years, you're not going to get a loan. And so we had to buy out these ground leases.
So a ground lease is when you lease the land and build a building on top of it. So you don't own the land, but you do own the building, and you're paying rent on the dirt, even though you own the building. And at the end of the land lease, the building converts over to the ownership of the land owner.
Exactly.
So what he had to do was he had to go in and buy out those land leases.
Yeah.
Or he wasn't even going to be able to put financing on it.
And this is not uncommon. A lot of downtown urban areas in many markets have what these ground leases, and they're 100 years old, 80 years old, whatever. And so the original grand lessors are long gone. And so now the heirs to those estates have them. And oftentimes it's multiple family members, kids, grandkids, great-grandkids. Some want to sell, some don't want to sell. First of all, getting everybody on the same page is complicated enough. And then negotiating something that works for everyone else, as you can imagine, is also a challenge. So ultimately, we were able to get it done through fear. It's like, well, look, if we don't get this deal done, what are you going to be left with? Who's going to pay your ground rent then? You're going to have an empty building that's full of pigeons, and good luck getting rent from them.
Good tactic. It's a good tactic.
Now, I am interested if you'd be willing to share. Here's really what I want to highlight for Timmy and our listeners. These two deals that you just told us about were risky. If you didn't get Lowe's, if Lowe's decided to go Pittsburgh, that deal could have looked completely different. And maybe it would have been one you looked back on and said, I wish I never would have done it. This Dallas deal worked out really, really well. But if Greyhound leaves, that could have looked completely different. So there's really big risks here, and they don't always work out. And so I'm wondering if you'd be willing to share maybe a deal story where the risk went the other way.
Oh, Bo, you're hurting my heart now.
We don't.
As you probably know, not every deal works, right?
Very true.
The one that hurts me the most is in Sacramento, California. Bo, have I told you this story before? Have you heard this one?
I have heard this one. Yes.
No. Yeah, I call it sack of tomatoes because that's what it turned out to be. So Sacramento is the state capital of California. So it's got a lot of state agencies housed in that vicinity. Well, we had, through another CCIM, I found a deal in an office park, multi-tenant, multi-building office park, low-rise surface park buildings, tilt wall construction. You can kind of picture it, right?
Yeah.
They're not fancy, pretty buildings, but they're very functional. CCI brought me a deal with a potential tenant to go with that deal, and they were empty buildings. So we were able to, once again, buy it at a good price. Notice all my stories have some entrance strategy, but also an exit strategy. How are you going to make money on the front end? How are you going to get out of it? Right? It's important to know what your exit is before you ever go in.
Yeah. So
my exit here was get the building leased to a large state agency, buy it, right, and then sell it.
Yeah.
Right. Well, we executed that plan, and the state agency happened to be the State of California Department of Corrections. There was not a prison there. It was the large organization that manages all the prisons.
Okay.
Right. And as you can imagine, the largest state with the largest amount of prisons, that's a big agency. And so we signed a long-term GSA lease, a Government Services Administration lease, which is a little different than a typical lease. You don't have a lot of flexibility on negotiating the document. But the good news is they pay their rent. And you can turn around and sell that cash flow to the next buyer and make a profit.
Yeah.
We signed the lease. We spent a lot of money putting them in. Everything's great, right? We actually put it on the market for sale. We identified a buyer, and we were negotiating the sales contract when the state of California stopped paying their rent. There was a time where California ran out of funding. That would have been about 2004 or 5, maybe 6.
Thanks a lot, Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Arnold was the governor. Whenever Arnold was the governor, that's when that happened. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Schwarzenegger.
So they quit paying their rent. We got to pay our bills. I've got a mortgage.
Yeah.
I've got to keep the lights on. I got to pay the janitorial staff. I've got to, continue to maintain the building. I'm writing checks rather than cashing checks.
Yeah.
And the tips got bigger and bigger, and it took longer and longer, and there was no end in sight. And I couldn't take those IOUs to the bank, trying to work with the lender. Hey, can we postpone our loan payments until we can start getting this rent back in? Well, the lender, they weren't interested in participating in that pain. The lender had more staying power than we did. They knew they were ultimately going to get their money from the state. They just didn't know how long it would take. Ultimately, I had to give the keys back to the lender. Lost the sale, lost our equity. It was an ugly story. Yeah.
Oh, man.
I was left with a sack of tomatoes, Timmy. That's why I call it that.
I love it. I mean, I love the sack of tomatoes term for Sacramento. But like, how does the state, how are they able to get away with that?
They ran out of money.
Yeah.
And you can't do anything. And the point here is, like, the risk is real.
Yeah.
Because if you were to evaluate a deal and you say the state of California is my tenant on a long-term lease, and like you're going to think that that's pretty secure rent.
Yeah.
The government pays their rent.
Right.
And I have to believe they got caught up.
And I mentioned the GSA lease. Every government services administration lease that's ever been negotiated has a clause that it's subject to funding, government funding of that agency. And in some cases, if the funding stops, they can terminate their lease. So you're taking that risk. Now, when we underwrote this deal, I'm thinking, okay, big state agency, they're not going to shut down the California prisons.
Right.
Right. They're just not going to empty out the prisons. They're going to have to continue to run these prisons. So they weren't interested in terminating the lease, but they couldn't make the payment because there was no funding. So, who made out like a bandit on this deal was the lender. The lender foreclosed and then wrote it out. And when the state started paying again, they put it back on the market, and they're the ones that took my profit for themselves.
Yeah. You were beholden to the lender there.
So, Bo, thanks for bringing up that memory. I was having a good day until now, but
look, I'm sorry, but thank you for saying. Look, the point I wanted to make is, all the stories aren't great all the time,
right?
No,
it's good things
sometimes. And if anybody wants to start investing in commercial real estate or become an investor or continue along that path and try to do bigger deals, and bigger deals aren't necessarily harder to do, but the stakes can be harder, and that risk is real. And if you have a run of, say, like the last, from 2012 to 2022, like, it was hard to screw up a deal at that point. Now, all the expenses are up. Money's more expensive, energy's more expensive, labor's more expensive, transportation's more expensive. That's making everything more expensive, and the risks have gone up. And so, and you just have to be aware. And if you just hear about the stories where everything went well and all the partners made money, and it was great return, you might just forget to factor in the risk. And I think it's important that we share the stories, even though, Mark, I feel I didn't experience your pain, but I feel it.
Yeah. Yeah, I do. So moving forward, Mark, was it just a bad assumption on your part that the state would pay, or is that more, have you found that that's more common than you thought? Like, would you do a deal with the state again?
I would. Yeah, I would, if the circumstances are right. I mean, this was an anomaly, right? How often does this happen? Fortunately, not very often. Yeah, we made a bad assumption. In hindsight, should we have investigated the state's funding capacity in advance? Of course. But keep in mind, they moved in, they started paying rent and paid for some time before, the funding stopped. So these are things you can't anticipate.
Yeah, but in hindsight, there was something you could have looked at that you didn't.
Yeah. That was an unusual event that unfortunately doesn't happen very often, but it did happen. And it does.
It's just interesting now because, what is it, Proposition 47 in California, where they, it's basically you're not thrown in jail for drugs where before they had they had this incentive of people who were caught with drugs illegally were either going to go to court and possibly go to prison, or they would go into rehab and these drug rehabilitation programs, which worked really well until I think it's Prop 47. If it's not on the screen here, you can see what it is actually, where it pretty much decriminalized it. So there wasn't this incentive to go into drug rehab because there was the other option wasn't jail. And so it's just interesting all this here because it does seem like the jails are emptying out to a degree than it had been in the past. So I just find that interesting.
Yeah, I see your point, but we didn't really take into account of the jail occupancies or demand for more prisons. That really wasn't factored into our decision.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, Mark, thanks so much for coming on, man.
Yeah, Mark, this is great.
This is great.
I hate to leave it on such a bad memory note, Bo, but
we don't want to keep it too long, but and if there's
no, that's fine. I'm joking.
Sack of tomatoes is hilarious.
Sack of tomatoes.
That's a
for those listeners in Sacramento, I apologize, but that's my nickname for that market.
Yeah.
Tomato.
And I think that anybody could understand that. Mm-hmm. Mark, is there anything that anything you want to put out there for our listeners to find you?
I'm not a big social media guy. I'm kind of under the radar a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's simply because in my business dealings, we do private equity. So I'm not out there raising funds.
Okay.
But I do love to stay connected with my fellow CCIM students. Some of my best deals, and this is my pitch for CCIM, my best deals all have one common denominator, and that's primarily through the CCIM network. So,
huge,
great education, great networking, great technology. I'm a big proponent of that. So that would be my final word: is get connected. If you're not already in the program, check it out. Get connected to your local chapters. There's a lot of great stuff going on there.
Great.
And if you go to CCIM.com and search for 102 classes being offered, and if you want Mark as an instructor, you'll be able to find him there, and you can sign up to take 102 from him, which I would highly recommend.
Yes.
Yeah, and there's also some Word Center classes as well, some great ones. I teach a couple of those Word Center courses. There's a new one we have called Asset and Portfolio Management.
Oh, nice.
And it kind of goes into what we've been talking about. And there's another one, it's called Advanced Market Analysis, if you want to get into more in-depth, more macroeconomic things and some case studies using Site to do business. So those tools are all out there. So
awesome. All right. Mm-hmm. Cool. Thank you so much, Mark. This is a pleasure.
Yeah, this is great.
Thank you, guys. It was fun. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
All right. Bye-bye.
Sack of potatoes. All right, let's do some shout outs.
Yeah, let's do it.
If you leave a review on Apple Podcasts, we will shout you out. That's what I'm going to do right now. We got a few new reviews on Apple Podcasts. If you don't know how to leave a review on Apple Podcasts, we're going to show you here.
It's not the easiest thing ever. You kind of have to hunt for where to go to actually leave a review. Frankly, we love creating this podcast, and we absolutely love doing this. I love hearing the stories. I love teaching Timmy things. If you love the show as well, if you've received any value out of this at all, one of the ways you can pay us back and help us and help the podcast reach more people is by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts. That's really one of the things that moves the needle, and we just so appreciate it. So when that happens, we always shout these folks out. So what do we have?
Yeah. And on that same note, if you're watching on YouTube, the best thing you can do there is comment. But the easiest thing to do that's also big is like and subscribe. Subscribe is huge. All right, this is from Oregon Commercial Broker.
Oregon
Commercial Broker.
All right.
Yeah, best CRE podcast ever.
Nice.
Love what you guys are doing, and I recommend your podcast at every broker meeting I participate in. We have an intern starting in the office, and part of his homework will include listening to all episodes of the podcast before end of summer. Wow.
Nice.
That's amazing.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. That's awesome. I left a review
Yeah, I saw that.
I left a review because I was like, I should go through the experience of how to leave a review before we're, ask more to see how. I just thought it was simple. It's not as simple as you think. I'm not going to read that review. I think it's a good one, though. Cats Fan 84. This is a highly entertaining podcast with great professional commercial real estate value. I love the brother dynamic. Timmy and Bo do a great job keeping me entertained and teaching us all about real estate. Great CRE podcast. Thank you, Cats Fan. Do you know who that is? Cats Fan 84. Are you trying?
It has to be Jay, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he was born in 84.
Yeah, and he's a Cats fan.
Well, Jay, when you hear this, yeah. Jay's one of our other brothers. And
yeah, Jay, let us know if this is you.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like him.
That's true.
It doesn't sound like him.
But man, when I saw Cats Fan 84, I thought, man, that's got to be. It's got to be. But anyway, whoever you are, thank you.
Thank you so much. Yep. And Jay, if it's not you, where you at? He's always on Spotify, and he'll respond to my Spotify questions. I'm asking fun questions now on Spotify. Great show with great insight. Great show with great insights in CRE and life from Micah6473. Thank you so much. And I think we're up to date there. And then on YouTube, we pick a few YouTube comments that we'll read as well. So leave us a comment. Rob Parisi. Bo, this is epic. Rob Parisi. Do you know that name?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Bo, this is epic. This is from Pitch to an Investor.
Okay.
Yeah. One of our older ones.
Yeah.
Just gotten kind of a bit of traffic recently.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Good.
It has. Like, some of those old ones are really growing in numbers now. And I think people are learning about it and going back and listening to the top producer Todd Humphreys. Nice job. Enjoyed this episode. It's just good business. That was the episode on faith in business.
Yep.
A couple more. Spencer Flattery commented, found from TikTok.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So
welcome, Spencer.
Will you be my mentor? Found this on TikTok. So really appreciate that. That's great. Thanks for letting us know that too. That's great. Chad Griffiths. The Legend of Todd did not disappoint. It did not. That's a really great one too.
And Chad's one of our friends from Canada. We're going to be doing a collaboration with him coming up. So you'll see him on the show, and we're going to go on his show. And
yes.
And so yeah, something to look forward to there. So thanks for the comment, Chad.
Yeah,
Chad.
Thanks, Chad. And then last one, Leland Herzog. This is great stuff, guys. From Will You Be My Mentor?
Well, thank you, Leland.
Thank you, Leland. Thanks for all the shout outs. We got a free newsletter, goes out every single Thursday.
And it includes one of our latest podcast episodes, so direct to your inbox. It also includes a curated set of articles and information on everything from business, leadership, organizational culture, negotiation, all kinds of stuff that I like to read and learn about. We curate into this newsletter. And so some commercial real estate, a whole lot of business, and a little bit of podcast action. Yeah. So if you want to subscribe there, you can go to subscribe.wgbarron.com, and we'd love to have you as part of the newsletter.
Yeah, and Bo, outside of this podcast, not only is he a CCIM instructor with CCIM, but he's also hosting a series of webinars called Currently Commercial.
Yep. And the next one is on July 30th. And so if you go to CCIM.com, go to the education section and search for a course, if you type in Currently Commercial, you'll be able to register for that. And our guest on July 30 is Henry Hayes. And this guy, man, his passion for AI and some of the things that he's created with it are unbelievable. So it's all about expanding our capabilities in commercial real estate using AI. So that's going to be a great live webinar. So we invite you to join us.
That's great.
As well.
Yeah. And that'll be in the newsletter too. All right, cool. I don't know if Alice is here anymore, but Alice, if you are, you can unmute to say goodbye to us. I don't see her in here, so I don't think she is. But we'll say goodbye to her, or I'll say goodbye to her.
No, it's anyway. Bye, Alice. Love you too, man.
Bye, Alice.
I'll see you later.
Bye. See you all next Monday.